Now these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Egypt. Each man and his household came with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah; Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin; Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. All these who were descendants of Jacob were 70 persons, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, all his brothers, and all that generation. But the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, multiplied, and grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose a new king over Egypt, who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, Look, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply, and it happen in the event of war, that they also join our enemies, and fight against us, and so we go out of the land. Therefore they set taskmasters over them, to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh supply cities, Pithom and Ramses. And the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were in dread of the children of Israel. So the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigour. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar, in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service, in which they made them serve, was with rigour. My name's Arthur. Thank you for joining me as we share together the story of Exodus. We've read Exodus chapter 1, verses 1 to 14. The background here is that God had called Abraham to walk with him on a journey, and Abraham had left Ur in the Chaldees and begun the journey, ending up in the land of Canaan. There God made the promise to Abraham that he would make his descendants as the dust of the earth, and again as the stars of heaven for number, and that he would bless Abraham and make him a blessing and make him many nations, and that all the earth would consequently be blessed through Abraham's descendants, but that those who stood against him would be cursed. In other words, God would be for Abraham and his descendants. But he explained to Abraham that his descendants would not occupy, that is, own the land, until 400 years had expired, which was well beyond Abraham's lifetime. Abraham believed that God would do what he'd promised, and so Abraham's grandson Jacob had taken his family to Egypt. We're told here that there were 70 descendants of Jacob who went to Egypt, given Joseph had 2 sons there already. God had approved of the moving of the family to Egypt, and Joseph, who was governor of the land, had given them a separate part of Egypt, which was uninhabited grazing lands, to establish them there, so that they would not intermingle with the Egyptians, for the Egyptians found sheep herders offensive, and that's what the Israelites were doing, caring for sheep. In the land they were very fruitful, and we're told they multiplied abundantly. So in the a little over 200 years that they were in Egypt, they became a very mighty group. The political situation changed. We're not given the details of a new king over Egypt, but it seems as if there was some kind of takeover. The dynasty in Egypt that was friendly towards Joseph was replaced by a new king, and he was concerned of being thrown out of the land, which suggests, of course, that he had actually come in and taken over the land and was a bit nervous of his situation there. He was particularly nervous of this other immigrant group, the children of Israel, which were more numerous than they, and were not integrated into the rest of Egyptian society. This strongly suggests that the new king over Egypt was not part of the traditional Egyptian families that had been there at the time Joseph came. but the detail of where he may have come from are not provided in Scripture. Nevertheless, this new king was nervous because of the children of Israel and made particular laws to try and keep them under check and under control, to stop them becoming powerful. And this is a pattern we see throughout history. Many regimes have set rules particularly against the nation of Israel in an attempt to suppress them and destroy them. But in so doing, they put themselves under the curse of God. Those who bless you, I will bless. Those who curse you, I will curse. When people treat other people like that, it is because they assume that these other people have the same kind of agenda that they have. Their agenda was an agenda of control. There's no hint at all that the children of Israel had some agenda of taking over Egypt. But the new king assumed that they had, because that was his agenda. And so he didn't want the Israelites to fight against him in the event of war. Now, the other part of what was happening, of course, was that the children of Israel had not assimilated into the Egyptian society, which evidently had accepted the new ruler. The children of Israel would no doubt have been very conscious of the fact that this new king was not justified in his position. And so that also would have added to the suspicion that the new king had. So he put them to work. He put taskmasters over them and set them burdens. And he did this in a very severe way. The emphasis is his purpose was to afflict them with burdens, to try and stop them having families and increasing. He was in dread of the children of Israel. He did not understand them, and he did not trust them. That doesn't mean that they were difficult to understand or that they were untrustworthy. It simply means that his agenda was completely different to their agenda. And so the children of Israel became slaves, and we're told that their lives were made bitter with hard bondage, in mortar, in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service in which they made them serve was with rigour. Now, throughout history, we have had many people who have come to power only to exploit what we might call the poor of the land. Those who do not have political power are taken advantage of and used as pawns to increase the power of those who have power. Of course, this isn't a godly agenda. This is the agenda of the world. It is the agenda that Satan has. He wants to be top dog and to rule over others. And so he works to that end of making sure that everyone is submissive to him. And particularly those who do not acknowledge his power, he is opposition to them. And so God's people have often been the target of rulers, not because they're doing anything wrong, but simply because they do not support proud rulers. Consider Mordecai and Haman. Mordecai would not bow to Haman because he knew his agenda and purpose was wrong. And so Haman purposed to destroy all the Jews for Mordecai's sake. And of course, in the Christian era, when Caesar proclaimed himself king and required Christians bow down to worship him, they refused to do so. It wasn't that they were evil citizens, but they would not render to man what is due to God. As Jesus taught it, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. The Christians were happy to do that, but to God belongs worship, not Caesar. Caesar is just a man. Pharaoh was just a man, and he was not going to be worshipped by the Israelites. But the more the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigour, the more they multiplied.